Is it on? Hi. Hello. My name is Urana Chimso. I am an internet philosopher, applied philosopher. Basically, what that means is I take a philosophical perspective to things that we experience in life as human beings towards the goal of enjoying life a little bit better and making life better for other people. Welcome to my channel. I'm sorry. It's just funny to me because, I'm officially a content creator. There's a glare in here. So they're fake. It was for aesthetic. It's funny to me. It's funny for me to say that because I'm like, oh, I'm a content creator. I've been recording videos. I say this almost every video, but I've been recording videos since November. But I've just started making them public in the last couple of weeks. So before I would literally just get on here and start talking. But now I have to introduce myself because people that don't know me may come across my stuff. But welcome to my channel. Like I said, applied philosophy. Topics that I'm currently interested in are Christian theology, science and metaphysics, relationships, and economics, business, and finance. I am currently in an economics PhD program. Amongst a lot of other things I do, I'm a writer. I write poetry. I write reflective some things as well. I've been a Christian my whole life. I love relationships. So everything that I talk about is basically just me and sharing my perspective with other people and how I approach and interact with the world. Today, we're going to be talking about truth. Now, this is going to touch on a lot of the different main subjects that I have. I'm a very integrative person, so I usually think about things in an integrated way. Like I see something over here and I see something over here and I'm like, bring them together. Bring them together. Well, it's not like I'm bringing them together. I'm more so like there's a connection. Look at the line, look at the string, they're connected. And I like to highlight those connections. So I think truth is something that kind of touches on everything. It's a core philosophical concept and it kind of guides our lives and the decisions that we make. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about because I believe that truth is elusive from a fundamental and foundational understanding of what it is that we call truth. And the reason why I titled this video "The Function of Truth" is because I think we often see truth as this like ethereal thing that exists somewhere out there in the void that we are trying to reach and grasp for and understand. And we develop all of these different ideologies and philosophies and worldviews based off of what we are saying is true. Meanwhile, I think truth is more like a tool and a function, at least the way that we use the word truth and what we're actually using it to describe, versus this thing that we are trying to achieve, which typically is what philosophers try and do, and people within the scientific realm in general and within the academic and scholarly enterprise are trying to do is they're trying to reach truth. Whereas for me, I believe that truth is really just it's a tool and it's a function that serves other purposes directly related to our experience as human beings, which is why I tend to take the approach of applied philosophy. So what I'm going to do is I have notes. I just started trying to organize my videos a little bit more since people are actually going to be watching these. And I have a lot of notes because I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm just gonna go where my mind goes. And if I forget something or there's something that I wanted to say, I have it written down so I can come back to this. But where we're gonna start is I have this note in my notes app called Random Beautiful Thoughts. And I think I'm gonna start using that to create videos. They're just short sentences that carry a lot of meaning behind them. They're born out of a lot of reflection and observation of the world and seeing patterns that seem to be pretty stable, which is one of the things we're going to talk about. And they're basically just short sentences, like kind of like proverbs. They're short sentences to communicate a lot of LOL truth, but they're short sentences to communicate a lot of observation and experience that I have had. So these are two of them. Some of them I write in like multiple iterations because different. I love words. I'm a writer. So sometimes different words convey different meanings, and I like to figure out like which one is the best, or just like have multiple. So the first one is there is no truth. There is only experience, and then I added for this video I added something onto it. So there is no truth. There is only experience and interpretation. The interpretation part is the addition. Then the second one is Truth is found in a multitude of questions about a multitude of experiences. And then the iteration of that is truth is found in endless questions about endless experience. So, as we can see from both of these, I have an understanding or I have observed that what we are calling truth, what we are deeming truth, is actually just is centered around this thing called experience. And okay, let me go to my notes because there's something that I want to talk about. I said this in I think my introduction video to my channel about the things that I'm interested in when I was describing my interest in science and metaphysics and this idea of stable relationships. So the things that we define as true are based on our observation and our experience of things that seem to be pretty stable as we navigate the world. Um, okay, my brain, come back to me. Yes, basically experiences that seem to be stable, observations that seem to be stable within the scientific enterprise, especially experimental sciences. What we are doing is trying to see what relationships hold under as many circumstances as we can put them through. I believe that's what scientific experiments are. I'm not a material science like scientist or what they call a hard scientist. I'm an economist. That's a social science, but human beings are material, but we are also metaphysical. But I'm making a claim about the hard sciences and the material sciences just based off of basic observation, going through the education system and having to encounter these different things. So what we define as truth, I think both in material sciences and metaphysical sciences, social sciences, philosophy, and all the like, is things that we observe as stable relationships, which is actually interesting because I'm in a macroeconomics class right now and we're talking about the history of macroeconomic thought, particularly in the West. One of these videos I'm going to make about African economics because that's part of what I want to write my dissertation on. But the history of economic thought, the history of macroeconomic thought within the West, and macroeconomics as this kind of elusive thing that is still being built and still trying to be understood. But one of the main enterprises of macroeconomics is trying to figure out what those stable relationships are for aggregate factors of the economy, things like inflation, unemployment, GDP, productivity, trying to figure out what relationships within those things are stable no matter what like situations they are put into. So I think like in this endeavor of trying to figure out what truth is, we're actually trying to figure out what relationships are stable. But the way in which we figure out what relationships are stable is based on experience and observation. And those are subjective. Experience and observation are always subjective because they need to be subjected to interpretation. And that's where the whole function of truth thing comes in because we're not necessarily just trying to find what these stable relationships are. We're trying to find what these stable relationships are to make it easier for us as human beings to live about the world and make decisions. I think truth functions for the brain as a shortcut for making decisions towards one, staying alive, but also I think like fundamental things that human beings seem to be pursuing, things like contentment, love, belonging, peace, and deeming things as true or observing things that seem to be stable makes it easier for us to make decisions on how we pursue those things. I literally have no idea where this video is going. I'm just getting on here and talking. So I'm going to go through my notes and see if there's anything else. So right now we have stable relationships, observations, and experiences. Okay. So then how do we go from our observations and experiences to these stable relationships so that we can then use our understanding of these stable relationships to pursue these things: contentment, love, belonging, and peace? I think the scientific method is probably the best one that we have so far. And I think just the more that I'm exploring this idea of like what is truth, why does truth matter, and all of these things. I'm starting to really appreciate the scientific method more, because this kind of goes to the second proverb that I wrote, is the multitude of questions or endless questions about multitude slash endless experiences. We have to take our experiences and interpret them to determine what these stable relationships are. That interpretation process can literally be anything. Interpretation is fundamentally a subjective endeavor. Um, and the reason why I say a multitude is because we as individual people have biases. We have biases based on genetics, we have biases based on biology, we have biases based on our neurophysiology, biases based on our upbringing, our culture, our experiences, the relationships that we've been in, things that we have been exposed to. So, as individuals, we are extremely biased when it comes to interpreting any experience that we have. And that's why the multitude of questions is important in this endeavor of discovering these stable relationships. And the multitude of experiences is important in discovering what these stable relationships are, because we can't say that something is a stable relationship just based off of one out of billions, one out of billions of people. That's just people. We're not even talking about like animals and rocks and stars, because while we are like sentient and sapient, we are also material. So things that can be described materially, or material things that seem to manifest sentient and sapient properties, are also material things that exist elsewhere in the universe. So one out of billions when it comes to human beings that have lived throughout history, and then like trillions, quadrillions, quintillions, all just matter in general. And I think because of that, like it's really humbling, and it makes you question a little bit more what you say is true and deeming something as true. Because typically when we're saying something is true, unless we're talking about like a specific material event, so something that like materially happened in history, typically when we're saying something is true, we're making a statement about the nature of reality. How in the actual world can one human being make a statement about the nature of reality? No, I just want you to like think about how ridiculous, how ridiculous it is to try and make a statement towards the nature of reality. Now, I'm in a PhD program, right? my goal, my goal is to make statements about the nature of reality. But I love that I'm bringing like my PhD education into this. One of the first, I think the first reading that I had to do for my program, shout out Chris Coyne, um, that's the name of my professor, was this article, or I think it was a Nobel speech written by Friedrich Hayek, who was an Austrian economist, for the Nobel Prize. He won the Nobel Prize, and this was his speech. And the title of his speech is "Pretense of Knowledge." Everybody needs to read that. And he was talking to economists and social scientists specifically, but I think especially in the age that we live in, where information is readily available online, and like information output is readily available to anyone, and people are out here making truth claims about the nature of reality left and right. I think it is really important for us to read and to hear something like this, where he's saying that when he's talking to economists and social scientists specifically, he said, you cannot make claims about the nature of the things that you are studying because you are part of the thing that you are studying. So you are inherently, it's like you're swimming in water and you don't realize you're in water, and you're trying to study the other fish, and you're trying to study other fish and determine the nature of water, not realizing that you are also a fish in the water that is being affected by the water, and your movements in the water are affecting the other things that you are observing. That's my analogy for it. And it's just like you have to be really humble when you're approaching trying to make statements about truth, whatever that is, because there's so much that we don't know. There's so much that we don't understand. I mean, we can even see that throughout the development of the scientific institution over the past couple of years, um, life is extremely complex and intricate. And I think when we are approaching making truth statements, we need to be clear about what it is we are doing and why. What function does saying that something is true serve for you in that moment? Because most of the times, honestly, I doubt we are trying to make a statement about the nature of reality. Otherwise, you would be a philosopher. I think most times we are trying to make it easier for us to make decisions about life. That's what it is. And so truth then becomes a tool in the decision making process. This kind of relates back to the video that I told you. I'm very integrative. Everything just relates to one another. But this relates to the video I think I posted yesterday about what economics is and how economics is the study of things that we're trying to achieve, the resources that we have available to us, and how we get there. Truth or making claims about truth is part of that process of how we get from one to the other. And the things that we have available to us, resources, are the things that we then use to determine what is true. However, one core claim of economics is limited resources. And I think when it comes to something like truth, that resource that we have is experiences. Experiences is not just like you go out into the world and things are happening to you, like your body moving. Experiences is also the things that you encounter, whether that's through media, things that you read. Experience can also be like what is happening in your mind, what is happening in your body, how you interpret and understand those things. You're limited in the resources that you have to determine truth because you are a limited human being. You're limited to the things that you're exposed to, you're limited to your own body, you're limited to the way that your brain processes things and what it prioritizes in processing things. And so, okay, where was I going with that? So we need to really understand like what when I catch myself trying to make a truth claim, what is it I'm actually trying to do in this moment? Because most of the time you're not actually trying to make a claim about reality. You're using that claim as a tool towards another end. But I think something that we don't realize, and I think this is such an important thing for me because I do tend a lot towards philosophy and metaphysics. When people make claims that sound definitive and universal, I tend to take them like that. I grew up trusting what people said, or believing what people said, or believing that people talk or process or communicate the same way that I would. So for me, I'm very unlikely to make universal truth claims because I'm very aware of the fact that I can't do that. But just because that's the way like we speak and that's the way that we communicate, I think it made it hard for me like growing up to understand when people were genuinely saying something that is true. I'm using it in the colloquial sense, but something that is true, or just something that is based on their experience, their limited experience and observation. And it took me expanding my own experiences and my own observations and asking a lot of questions to realize that's what people are doing. And I think the danger of saying, like, communicating something as universally true is that there are people like me out there in the world who will take what you say and who take things that people say seriously and use that to build their worldview. Because one thing about me is I'm not going to limit my worldview to the things that I experience and the way that my brain processes things. Because I am very aware that I am one out of billions and trillions and quadrillions and quintillions of people and material objects in the world. And if I'm claiming that something is true, it better incorporate all of those experiences and integrate them in a way that is coherent and consistent and flows naturally. So when I'm hearing people talk and they're saying things, that is going into the register of my mind of building my world, of my map of reality and the world. And it can make it hard to understand things and make decisions when I'm coming up against certain circumstances because I'm like, how does this fit in? This person said this, but it's not making sense. And I know, like, as you get older, you have to like, build a filter for what you let in and how you interpret certain things. But I think maybe we do it more than we realize, or we don't even realize that the filters we don't realize the filters that we have on that allow certain experiences and proclamations of experiences presented as universal truth to enter into our mind and go into the file that is then used to build our worldview. So I think the reason why I'm emphasizing this point is it can genuinely have effects on how people understand the world and therefore how they make decisions. Because again, truth is functional. Ultimately, it is functional. It is there to help us. Not it is there, but I think this word concept for human beings developed to help it to make it easier for us to make decisions in pursuit of other things. And okay, I think I hit on most of the things that I want to talk about, but I think there's a certain point that I missed. So I'm going to check my notes right now. Yeah. So I think instead of like, and I think because of that, because we use experience as a proxy for determining truth, I think it's a lot better to just focus on experience and yeah, focus on experience instead of trying to make truth claims based on our experience. So one thing that you could do is I'm really bad at coming up with examples because I'm very abstract, metaphysical, and things like that. But um, okay, something basic like the sky is blue. That is a truth claim. Okay, the sky is blue. I, for as long as I can remember, have observed that the sky is blue. We can even get into a whole like discussion of what it means for something to be and then what blue actually is. But I have observed that the sky tends to be blue. Is it true that the sky is blue? Because when the sun is in a different location, like let's say the sky is what is up there, because then we now have to define terms to determine what truth is. The sky is something that is up there when there are no clouds obstructing our view of the up there, whatever it is. Okay. When the sun is in a different position relative to the earth, the sky is no longer blue. The sky is no longer blue. At night, yeah, the sky is a different color based on the position of the sun to the earth. So then making a truth claim like the sky is blue actually is not true for like half of the days, like half of the time during the day, and half of the days during the year, depending on where you live on planet Earth. So then it's like, okay, why did I feel the need to say the sky is blue? Because then it's like if we then dig into the claim that is being made and we realize that it's not it's not as stable of a relationship as we thought, we then have to start thinking about why did we feel the need to make this claim in the first place. And I think maybe in this example we could say saying I wanted to say that the sky is blue because it is obvious to everyone that the sky is blue, and it is a proof that there are certain things that are just understood and that are just known. Then when I started explaining to you that you don't even experience the sky as blue in a single day, then it makes you start rethinking like the thing that you were using this truth claim for. Quickly, because I just think this is like a really like cool thing to think about. Even the concept of is in terms of like again stable relationship is declaring a stable relationship no matter what happens. And then the concept of blue, science is so cool. Blue blue is not a thing. Blue is an experience. Blue is not a thing. Blue is an experience of blue is an experience of photons hitting material objects and parts of that photon being absorbed and parts of it being reflected back and hitting the what do they call it? Cones? The cones in my eye and being processed in my brain. Blue is an experience. Blue is not a thing. Anyways, I hope that example basically made my point. I'm gonna start using that example more. The sky is blue and breaking down because we didn't even get into the definition of trying to define what is sky because how can you define what the sky is? What is that thing up there? Can we reach it? Because like the farther I go into it, it no longer becomes blue. Apparently, it becomes black. It's the void of space. Um, yeah. But anyways, I hope that basically made my point about like truth and the function of truth and yeah, things like that. Okay, was there anything else I wanted to say? I think I specifically learned this in the process of relationships and learning not to make character and value judgments on people for behavior because there are so many things that affect how human beings behave. So I think I came to this conclusion in primarily in the form of relationships, but also just because I'm very philosophical, just trying to observe the world. Oh, excuse me. And trying to understand the world and the nature of reality. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Ezumezu philosophy. So this is something that I came across. I'm probably not saying it right. I'm still learning my Igbo, but this is something I came across around I think September of last year because I remember talking to the same professor that I said, Chris Coyne. I remember sending him a podcast about it because I thought it was so interesting. But it's basically a different approach to making truth claims or to doing philosophy. So this whole idea of there is something that I'm trying to make a statement about something that is a universally stable relationship. Even the concept of we're getting into ontology, but the concept of truth not being a thing, like a singular thing in and of itself, but describing relationships in terms of what makes a thing a thing. We can talk about that in another video. But the difference between I think the tradition that developed out of Greek philosophy and what the foundation of an African philosophy could be. If we had had this conversation in September, I probably would have been able to describe it more. But the point I'm trying to make with bringing it up is I think there's three core tenets. I don't remember them now, but one of the core tenets of Ezumezu philosophy is context is important. I think one of the other ones is also things are inherently relational, and I forget what the third one is, but one of them is definitely context determines what we can say. And I think that just relates to everything that I've been saying about like it is based on experience and experience is subjective. Subjective basically means bounded by context or bounded by what you have available to you. And so I want to maybe develop a little bit more, not develop a little bit more, but maybe talk a little bit more about this way of approaching understanding truth because, and I may do a video of the tradition that developed out of Greek philosophy and then this Ezumezu philosophy, which I guess we could call an Igbo philosophy, but I think it's more universal in cultures than the Greek tradition. But yeah, basically this understanding of how we even approach the task of understanding reality and finding truth. Yeah, so I think that's everything that I had to say. Thanks for coming along on this journey. I'm still getting used to doing long form content like this and organizing my thoughts and ideas because I don't typically have to explain the things in my head to other people. It kind of just, I realize something and it kind of just files in my head and it comes up again when it's useful as I'm experiencing the world. But if I'm going to try and start explaining my philosophy to people, it needs to make sense. So I hope this made sense. I think we touched on like 3 out of the 4 main topics that I like to talk about. Maybe the only thing that we didn't touch on was Christianity. But I think by proxy, Christianity being a worldview, we did touch on it. So thanks for coming to this video. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.